We're thrilled to have you join us, and we're excited to also get to know more about you and as well as your personal and professional goals. Corinne, do you want to kick us off?
Yep, just trying to get there. You jumped in when I wasn't quite ready. Okay, so we're going to be starting by introducing our 7-step panacea, which some of you have already heard of, are somewhat familiar with, but now we're actually going to cover a little bit more in details in this workshop. So we're going to start with our presenting problem. So for some of you have received a free copy of the Genetic Recoding book, which is the introduction to genetic recoding and the prerequisite to the course. So this ebook is the audio and written introduction to genetic recoding. So it will help you to reprogram your subconscious mind, genetically recode epigenetic patterns, including self-sabotaging behaviors and limiting beliefs, using advanced recoding and holistic practices. So this is included in the professional and non-professional courses as a prerequisite, but it's also available for purchase as a standalone book. Some of you have not received that, you will get that. So, all right, I'm gonna go ahead and turn off our videos here. Okay, if we wanna shut our videos off just so it's not recording you, unless you wanna be recorded. Okay. Oh. Okay.
All right, perfect. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so I need to move the chat off the thing. So just 1 second here.
And I can see the chat, so we're good. We'll keep all of your information in confidence, by the way. So if you do want to ask any questions or add any of your own responses, feel free to use the chat bar and we'll keep your information confidential, okay?
Okay, Camille, go ahead and, you want to go ahead and get started? Kick us off.
Okay, do you want to go ahead and do a share screen?
Oh, yes, thank you. All right, not quite yet. We've got a couple people that are coming in. So 1 second. Hello, glad you can join us. We have you, I think, muted. So we're just getting started. So if you want to have any questions or anything, you can go ahead and type in the chat bar, okay? Okay, just make sure to let us know if you don't see the screen. Okay, everybody ready? Just type Y for yes or N for no. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and turn some of these videos off. Okay, we're going to be recording, so we want to keep this in confidence if everyone can have their videos off, just because we want to make this available for the replay. Thank you. Perfect. Corinne, unless you want to go ahead and maybe turn their videos off, would that be okay?
I think people's videos are turned off. I don't see any on.
Yeah, we still have one more. Thank you. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so this is a 7-step acronym system, and today we'll be covering step 1, addressing the presenting problem or the pattern by decoding subconscious programming. We'll also be transmuting the presenting problem at the core DNA level through each of these steps over the next 7 weeks. So in week 2, we will be covering adaptive emotional responses, which are also healthy coping mechanisms to heal shame and resistance, which is actually one of the most important steps. In week 3, we will cover neutralize emotional triggers with perceptual reframing techniques. In week 4, we'll cover accountability yields empowerment to remove the victim mindset. Week 5, compassion and empathy to dissolve resentment, which is the secret weapon to repair relationships. And in week 7, the final week, we will cover alchemical transformation to align to your purpose and potential. So we have a lot of fun to look forward to.
And I think that pretty much everyone here knows us, but we're just going to share a brief intro to quickly get acquainted. So we're Corinne and Camille, and we're the founders of Liberated Living and business entrepreneurs, holistic practitioners and therapists, and trainers for internationally accredited holistic diploma programs and advanced epigenetic and holistic psychology courses that also includes a turnkey business model, which is kind of what we're covering a little bit today.
Yeah, and we're delighted to get more acquainted with you throughout this workshop.
Yes, it's going to be more about you.
Yeah, so we know that the key to getting the most out of anything is applying the correct strategy. So to ensure we're working smarter versus harder, we want to be able to apply the 20% of the correct steps so that we can benefit 80% rather than the reverse 20%. So we want to share the benefits that you can look forward to by applying this panacea strategy.
So in this workshop, we're going to be covering how to gain key strategies to decode subconscious blocks and recode default epigenetic programming to overcome inherent challenges. So a lot of the epigenetic psychotherapy is really new. So that's a lot of things that we're going to get to. So it's going to cover a lot of things that are psychotherapeutic and a lot of therapies that many of you are familiar with, but we're going to take it a lot further on a genetic level. So how you can fulfill your purpose and unlock your potential. Discover how to activate the correct gene expression to heal DNA to align to your best self. Learn how to recondition your mind for success using the correct psychology and upgrading your neurocircuitry. You'll be receiving the free copy, if you haven't already, of Recode Subconscious Beliefs for your personal use and benefit. That's going to be available to you in ebook, audiobook, and downloadable as a PDF. So receive guidance toward mental and emotional freedom. And be awarded a fully accredited diploma for those taking the internationally accredited certificate of the completion, and for practitioner. And this is a 7-week workshop. So you can also receive a done-for-you practitioner manual, and that includes powerful workbook exercises and therapeutic strategies that you can use in a turnkey business in a box. For those advancing their coaching and therapy practice.
What are you doing?
Camille, do you want to mute yourself for a sec?
Sorry?
Oh, so someone. Receive training through your genetic recoding process so you can master your own medicine as the professional to become the expert in your field and receive a higher income reach. And repair interrelational dynamics and break epigenetic patterns, and so much more.
Yay. Okay. And then also the questions that are contained in the Panacea workshop will require you to be introspective and very honest with yourself. So if you are unable to answer any of these questions or complete any of these exercises, it may help to explore deeper into your psyche to gain better sense of emotional self-awareness. So if you are struggling to connect with your emotions, it may indicate perhaps some emotional suppression, feeling any disconnection, or even dissociation or denial, which can occur due to trauma, because it is a protection mechanism to help us feel like we can ease the pain or anesthetize it to protect us from maybe even going deeper with our emotions. However, that's what we're here for. So no matter what level you're at, we're here to help you gain the most benefits. And so you can also go back and complete each segment to the best of your ability, or revisit any missed sections when you feel ready. And we want to guide you to decode core blind spots to overcome in 2023 with these key psychotherapy exercises and questions. So each step is designed to help you transmute the obstacle and recode epigenetic and subconscious programming that's causing sabotage cycles. So we're going to start with step 1, to help identify these blind spots and subconscious blocks. For example, once we can identify a problem, we will know how to properly address it. So awareness of the pattern is the first step, and answering or asking the key questions will help allow us to process, examine, or meditate on it, helping to shake the brain loose and gain new solutions. And the first step is presenting problem or pattern to decode the blocks.
Okay, so your presenting problem is going to be related to a pattern, a person, or a perceived void. And we're going to cover perceived void a little bit more, which is an unmet need. And that is in our introduction course, where we did talk a little bit more about that. So it's usually going to be some kind of life challenge and may very well be associated with an inherited belief. So a lot of times we don't realize how many times our problems are actually related to something that's inherited. So that's why we want to take it to a deeper level. So we're going to help identify the problem if it's related to a childhood program, a parent-child pattern, or a family pattern, which is epigenetic. Or perceived voids from childhood may create ongoing patterns from subconscious programming, such as perceiving needs as not being met in our youth. And so, for instance, those who experience fear of abandonment likely suffered abandonment patterns in their youth, and it becomes a recurring circumstance in their life.
Yeah, we all realize that a large number of our beliefs are a result of our psychological and subconscious conditioning, but what we don't realize often is that many of these beliefs go deeper into our genetic programming. And so once we become more aware of this unconscious programming, we can begin to uproot them and embrace better iterations of ourselves. So let's explore deeper psychotherapeutic questions to work through some of these emotions. We're going to go ahead and start with some warm-up questions just to get to know more about you. Then we'll go deeper into this first step. So are you currently practicing as a coach or therapist now? Or have you ever been to counseling, therapy, or worked with a coach or therapist before? You're welcome to type in your answers. And again, we'll keep the name in the chat box confidential. Or you can even share with us what you currently do for a living.
So if you have like a title, you can put your title in. If it's, yes, I've worked with a therapist. Yes, I'm a coach. You can do Y for yes, just to shorten it, or N for no.
Yeah, and the question is are your professional interests and goals, are you doing something different than what you really desire? Most of you are probably likely going to be in this field and very well immersed in it as well.
And I think a lot of us have worked with coaches and therapists. I think majority, I could be wrong.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so what do you need to achieve these goals? Perhaps more clientele, more credentials or qualifications, more income, of course. Who would want more of that? More flexibility, more training and experience, the ability to work online or remotely, a turnkey business, done-for-you content and programs, a proven system to succeed, a complete holistic curriculum, or if there's anything else that's additional, feel free to specify, or even perhaps all the above. Yes, I like all of them too. Great answer, great response. Yes, all. Perfect.
Okay, and are there any obstacles holding you back from achieving this goal? For example, limiting beliefs, generational programming, conflicts in a relationship, finances, a busy schedule, which is one way I know most of us can relate to, or other, or all of the above. So try to take a look at this list and sum it up to your top 1 or 2 biggest challenges that you're facing and wanting help with throughout this workshop, because those are the things we're going to start working on and decoding. And if you want to write in the chat box, you can. Otherwise, just make sure you keep it in mind. So what are you wanting to improve about your business, your job, your relationship, or your life? Okay, generational programming, limiting beliefs, relationships, all. Okay.
Yeah.
And then ultimately think about what is your end goal. busy schedule. I know that about you. No surprise there. Oh, okay.
So the end goal may be even what we referenced before, having the time and money freedom, right? Having time to be with our family or travel. All right, so because of the way our minds are conditioned, when we're keeping a long-held focus and awareness on the vision that we do want, it can often be battled, as we all know, by those internal arguments that we often have with ourselves of what we may not believe is possible or even easily attainable. And that's when it may help to list counter arguments to dispute those thoughts. So we will be working a little bit more with some of those techniques and using that exercise extensively later on and with one of our steps. So what areas has this problem impacted in your life? Your work and finances, maybe social and relationships, or if you have kids, family, or your spouse and your marriage, in a home situation or living, even in your mental, emotional health, or perhaps all.
And I even want to just jump in and say, when we say kids, family, marriage, there are some people who are single. It could be affecting the, relationships and preventing marriage, right?
Right. And also another good response here is our relationship with ourself. Absolutely. Because that's all of them are going to be impacted, right? And what needs to change for your goal to become a reality? What maybe do you have to give up to make room for what you want? Or perhaps you're sacrificing at too great of a cost now. So if you feel prompted, feel free to type in your answer if you do know.
Work, finances, income, business, relationship with self, others. Overcome self-sabotage, yes. And we all have it. Living situation.
Yes. So all of these external conditions, right? Okay, even internal, all of it.
So do you feel like you have a game plan and you could handle this on your own, or are you wanting group support, one-on-one support, or self-paced support, where you can do it on your own time and convenience? And I know a lot of you are already going to be doing the group support through these workshops. One-on-one. Okay, cool. Working to become a therapist. Awesome. What subconscious beliefs and generational patterns would you like to change? Please type up to 2 that have affected important areas of your life that you are focusing on today. And then ask yourself, is this an epigenetic or generational pattern? And if you don't know, that's okay too.
Yeah, I mean, see if there's been a familiar pattern, maybe that have been passed from your folks, or somehow generationally, whether it's been the finances or areas within your personal growth, something specific. Just as an example.
Okay. Moving right along.
Okay, well, although our Panacea workbook is an interactive workbook and will be available for purchase and is also provided for those who are taking the certification course for the practitioners. Again, once before, as I mentioned, we're going to be getting old school. So this is the moment that if you want to grab your notebook and start writing, again, this may seem redundant, but write down your chief complaint or the current presenting problem that is potentially preventing you from attaining this ideal outcome that you want, because we will be addressing this throughout the entire 7-week workshop. Now state the ideal outcome, whether it's a goal or an objective that you would like to achieve. We're going to help you decode emotional blocks with the following questions. So identify if the problem is related to a childhood program, a parent-child pattern, interaction pattern, and we'll provide some examples, or an epigenetic pattern. And if you could, I do apologize if we can have the microphones turned off just in case, because we are getting a little bit of background. And I'm going to give an example. These perceived voids from childhood may create ongoing patterns from imprinted conditions. So we may have perceived, an instance in our past where a need was unmet, where we may not have felt supported. So can you identify any relooping patterns? Another example might be for those with divorced parents, they're more likely to repeat the same familiar patterns or find themselves following into their parents' same marital footsteps. I'm sure many of us can be guilty or feel guilty of that.
Okay, and then consider the patterns of your parents or your primary caretakers that you hoped to avoid repeating. Ask how you have become like your parents or where you are swinging the pendulum and resisting become like your parents or caretakers. So I'm glad we don't have parent-childs on this particular workshop right now, but we're going to get through a lot of the good positive stuff too. And if you do need more assistance identifying patterns, we are going to cover this in more depth.
Okay, so again, if the problem is a parent-child program or an epigenetic pattern, it likely occurred prior to the age of 7. So do you recall the initial event? And note if the pattern or program, for example, if it's an unmet need that is a recurring theme, is often unwittingly transferred to our spouse or a partner within primary relationships, such as not feeling supported or being able to express our needs. So note if it is still a recurring event.
And if you don't have your notepad, feel free to use the chat box.
Right. Either way, it just helps to be engaged in this, and because the more we put into it, the more we can get out of it. Sometimes we can intellectualize it, but we get so much more when we do process it by writing it down or typing it up. So if it's related to another individual, what emotional trigger was potentially activated? Can you identify if there's a mirror that's reflecting the same behavior with this other individual, whether it's a parent or spouse and so forth? And are you operating under the same belief as this other individual, such as maybe not feeling seen, not feeling heard or understood? Notice if the other individual may also be reflecting the same feeling or behavior that you do. And can you recall what the past event or recurring theme is? Because we will often triangulate in codependent relationships. And so we'll cover that next.
Example of childhood program being shutting down. Yeah, because there's a way of withdrawing. And that's kind of something we cover in the introduction course. So shutting down can be trying to avoid being shy.
Trying to avoid the
fear,
the pain, exactly, the event, 100%, withdrawing any of those events or any of those coping behaviors.
And then feeling heard, especially by caregivers or parents, okay. Okay, so we covered a lot of, if some of you are familiar with the Cartman drama triangle, and for those that aren't, we're going to just do a quick, brief overview of it. So I want you to ask yourself in the Cartman drama triangle, which archetypal role that you primarily find yourself defaulting to? Is it the victim? Is it the rescuer or the perpetrator? Or is it all of the above? So I'm just going to do a quick recap. We go into great detail in the introduction course. So persecutors dominate, they blame, they tear down, and they like to play the role of the authoritarian. And the victim often feels helpless, powerless, and victimized by a persecutor or outside circumstance. So they believe things are beyond their control and happening to them, and that their dreams have been lost or denied. And rescuers are classic enablers that fear not being needed or feels guilty if they don't go to the rescue. Now, there's a lot more to these archetypes because we like to break it down and get into the belief systems that operate their behaviors. But just try to look at which archetypal role you primarily find yourself defaulting to. Most people know that they can relate to at least one or two.
And just remember that most often these start with really well-meaning intentions, particularly when we identify as the classic enabler or rescuer. We're generally trained to lend a hand and we want to be helpful. And sometimes we get trapped into that entanglement. And this is what will develop as a result sometimes when we actually get trapped in the game.
So rotating roles. So as far as the archetypes go, although we may all be well-intended, we will identify more with a primary role and typically rotate between roles throughout different scenarios in our life. So write down who you most frequently play this role with, because drama triangles initially start with close relationships such as parents, siblings, and other family members and intimate partners. And this is just a pattern that's repeating in your life and in relationships until we start to identify it and start to break it down, because they're unconscious patterns that have been passed on generation after generation as well. So reflect on the most common issues or circumstances that lead to this drama triangle. What kind of conflict do you find yourself in that will lead you to this? And then what is the emotion or the emotions that this person or the event provokes in you that leads you to play this role? And I hope I didn't go through that too fast. If you need me to repeat the questions, just type Y in the chat box.
Okay, may as well just proceed.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna, once you kind of have who the people are in your life that you play the Karpman drama triangle with, and what some of the events are and some of the emotions that surface, we want to talk a little bit about, move on to the mirror technique, because this all kind of starts to come in together. So with the mirror technique, try to identify the mirror that the pattern or person appears to reflect. So like, what qualities stand out to you in the person or others that you tend to judge, criticize, or feel annoyed or hurt by? And then look for characteristics in this person or the situation that you recognize within yourself or that appears similar. So, for example, are there shortcomings, an exaggerated version of your own? We often judge others where we either judge ourselves or where we have an imbalance within ourselves. So, for example, if this person appears too controlling, bossy, aggressive, ask yourself if you're exhibiting either too passive of behaviors or too aggressive of behaviors, because chances are either you're mirroring them and you have areas where you're aggressive, or it could reflect an imbalance within you where you're being too passive. So for things like, does someone lack respect towards you? And if so, ask yourself if you lack respect toward them or even towards yourself. So these are kind of examples of the mirror technique. And then what qualities within them reflect an imbalance within yourself? So this quality might represent the opposing quality that we just discussed. So aggressive versus passive, or introverted versus extroverted.
Yeah, and clearly these are just demonstrating areas where we find in the drama triangle, we are establishing healthier boundaries, right?
And learning not to see things necessarily outside of ourselves, but learning to look within our own psyche to see what's being projected outside of us, because people are just basically exhibiting a mirror.
Yeah, precisely.
Okay, so if we got that, we're gonna go ahead and move on. I like the comments.
Yes, cute. All right, so examine the emotions this person or the problem is triggering, and look at let's look at some of the examples of the most common limiting belief, and you're welcome to write them down on your notepad or in the chat box, or you don't have to either, but just see if any one of these stand out the most to you, because these are just at the core subconscious level. I'm not enough, whether it's smart enough or educated enough, we know that there's this I'm not enough syndrome, right? That sometimes is fired within all of us when something goes wrong. It's selfish of me to want more. I don't believe that I deserve it. I'm afraid of trying and failing, or I'm afraid of trying and succeeding. Other people or outside forces are holding me back. I need money to make money. I don't have the willpower. I've already tried everything. There's not enough for me, or I fear rejection or not being loved. And if any of those resonate, just realize that you are human, because these are universal. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at some of the most common subconscious beliefs and emotions. So these are just common. You can look at each one of these and see if you identify again, same as the last slide. So belief of feeling unworthy or undeserving, which may reflect an area where we feel some lack of self-worth. It's not always the case. It's not it may just be in some areas in our life that we are working on developing a greater sense of self-worth. So lacking emotional security, not feeling like enough, maybe the inadequate or incompetent feeling powerless or like a victim, controlled by fear, overwhelm, or anxiety. Fear, maybe suppressed emotions, conditional love, judgment, rejection, and so forth. Rigid or conflicting beliefs, meaning I can't have it all, right? I can't have this, I can't have money and do what I love, right? A common conflicting belief. Neglect, feeling neglected or abandoned. Emotionally disconnected or even dissociating, which again means we are trying to flip the channel to something that feels better, right? Blocked compassion or judgment. Chronic depression or worry. Perception of being unacknowledged, invalidated, or undervalued. And if there's one or more that stands out, again, feel free to write it down or share it. But remember, these are all just a result of generally how we were brought up, right? So what was the event that led to this core subconscious belief? Which is, also a filtered perception, because, if there's usually a sticky memory that keeps ruminating in our mind and has yet to be processed and healed, such as a past memory of feeling unloved or incompetent or any of those emotions that often make us feel somewhat shamed. So can you see how this may have also been a pattern within your parents or even the key players in your life, with the same encoded belief as we discussed before, like the fear of failure? And do you see where this individual may also possess the same limiting belief, and what meaning was assigned or implied toward you by either of your parents, causing the I'm not good enough syndrome that we tend to suffer sometimes? And was the overall message this mirror technique that reflected to you about yourself that you saw in someone or something else? So for example, were you both hurt and withholding love from one another due to pride? And again, this may not be about another individual. This could be more related to yourself. But if it is, then ask if there's maybe a parent-child pattern, interaction pattern, or belief that was transferred to your other one of your primary relationships. Again, not feeling supported, whatever the case may be. And was this an inherited belief from either your mother, father, or another relative, or maybe even both? Sometimes that's the case. And if you know what this belief was, if it's an epigenetic belief or pattern, name and write it down. If the belief from a pattern from your mother or a pattern from your father. Hopefully that made sense. Hopefully this is making sense. If again, if someone needs me to explain anything, because most of you are really well advanced and understand this, but there might be some times when there's some complexities around this. So if there is, feel free to please ask us to specify or elaborate if we need to.
Yeah. don't hesitate to chat what you need if you need us to go back or anything like that to revisit something. Sometimes we have certain areas we get stuck, and sometimes we need to break that down before we can move forward. But we are going, the remainder of this whole 7-week workshop, we will be dedicating to recoding these subconscious and inherited beliefs using genetic recoding to heal and advance to the next step and to the next stage of our life successfully, so that we're unblocking ourselves and getting unstuck. So next we're going to cover step 2, which is one of the most essential steps, adaptive emotional responses, or excuse me, next week we're going to cover adaptive emotional responses. And this is to overcome unhealthy coping mechanisms and heal shame and resistance to prevent us from repeating the pattern and the problem. So we'll be going over that next week. Now, of course, that's something that takes a long time for us to master. So that's why it's a really important step to make sure we master it, to break free from the cycle.
Yes. And we'll be using the process of genetic recoding throughout the entire 7-step panacea workshop, which is a standalone therapeutic process that starts at the root of core issues and inherent dispositions that is helping us, again, to work with recoding the subconscious belief in these programs at that DNA level, clearing the distortions and helping us to remove self-defeating and sabotage behaviors, even if these are childhood traumas, major or minor, and conditioning. So helping us to heal relationship patterns and those epigenetic patterns, so that we can be the chain breaker in our own family and signal positive change in the gene expression, so we can improve our overall mindset and reach higher self-mastery, as well as further aiding our clients genetically transfer these dispositions and beliefs by recoding their core epigenetic patterns, because many of you either are professionals or have been in this field or are moving into that realm that also offer other additional modalities and therapies. So this genetic recoding is a standalone therapy that can also be used as an adjunct therapy to complement other healing modalities and programs, or provide that multifaceted foundation. And it's an invaluable tool for the professional to provide the full holistic scope that enables individuals, couples, families, and the generations to solve problems in all aspects, again, on a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual level, because it is the holistic scope.
And I just am going to add and clarify that in this workshop, we are helping you to decode and kind of teaching you and training you for those that are also getting certified. This will be part of your certification course as well, and that will be the remaining of the 7-week workshop.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and shut or stop recording, and we're going to just ask if you have any questions, and leave the remainder of the workshop for a live Q&A.